So now what we can do is we can say contour, select all. I'm going to pick both of these guys. I'm setting all these to yes, and then I'm going to hit enter, and then oops, contour base point. Oops, I don't have that guy. So contour, pick both of these. The base plane I'm going to say here, and until I want to go in this direction, because I want it to just slice it down, and then I'm going to stack them back up. So I want vertical cuts, and then you're going to click that way. So the distance between contours, think of that as the distance between each time it's going to cut the entire thing, like slices, like at a deli. Like how thick do you want your deli to cut, like your cheese or your deli meat, or whatever it is you're getting, your turkey. So whatever the thickness of your material is, so if you're using 1/8 inch, you need to use 1/8 inch for your thickness, or if you're using 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. So just so that we don't get as many, I'm going to try half. So, oh, but my units are in feet. I made it 1, so let's say, what is that going to be? 0.1, who knows? But whatever like your distance needs to be. So here it's gone there. So let me undo that. I'm going to use base plane point here to there. And let's do 0.05. So we get some more of them. And now you'll be able to see the shape like that. But see, it's only using the outline. So that's something the laser cutter could cut out. And then you can have that. If you needed to have the positive also, so here you would have actually that shape. But what we could do is make it also cut a box like this. So then we get both of them. So when we do contour, and we pick these guys, click there, click this direction, hit enter. Now you'll see when I move this guy over, it's always going to give you that full box, and then also the other edge. And the cool thing is, once you click this, and if we wanted to see just one, you can see it gives you that whole cut all in one, so that you have it there. Now keep in mind, something like this, it's going to go through here and cut that off, or you can have it score that piece. It's up to you how you want it to do it. So a nice option would be to have it cut the main piece, score all these all like really heavy, or make it cut it out if you wanted to. You can take that out and color it. And then when you stack them all back together, you'll have all those lines. And you'll see it looks pretty interesting once you have them all back. And the plexi makes this weird kind of like fog effect. Because eventually, if you think about it, like when you look through the plexiglass, it's clear. But you might only see like 90% of the light that goes through. So as you start stacking the layers, you get 90% through the first one. And so only 90 reaches the second one, and then only 90% of that 90 hits the third one, and then you get this like decaying effect of the light. So you can look straight down your plexi, but you can't see it all the way through, and like the stuff inside kind of like vanishes into like this weird fogginess. It's kind of cool. But that's the easiest way to initially lay these out. Now the task is, how do you lay out the sheet so that you make sure, so here we can do, let's say our laser cutter bed is like we said, so 20, let's just make it 24 by 48, so 2, 4, and let's move it up here. So it's not this shape, but what you would have to do, you can either work this way or the other way. You would want to look at it in the elevation view, and then you need to grab all your sheets and lay them out in a way that will fit like that. Like all next to each other. And I learned this really cool trick where it makes it a lot easier. Because see how they're all at like different distances? I'm just moving them across. Now I can move. We can grab that guy, move it down. Is there what? Yeah, I'll show you that in a second. It's not like a natural command, but I have a trick that will help you. You actually already know the command, but it has more than one use. So here, this will prove to you that it'll work. See how they're all at different distances? That won't work once you sand to laser cutter. You need them all to be flat. So we have this weird kind of thing going on. But if you remember, Rhino has all these different views that we can use. So let's zoom all our views to that, and then here it looks like what we need, right? So if we click this and we say make 2D, and then you tell it to do all these things like we have been doing. So we don't really need hidden lines for this one, we don't need scene silhouette, we just need the standard thing. And then we say okay, and then now we can go to, where is my origin? Oh, we gotta go top view. Here. So now, if you look at this, let's take it in all these and look at it here. So see, it's flattened it for you. And it seems very simple, but that will save you hours worth of work. Because think about how many layers you're gonna get, and you have to move each one like a 1/4 inch. Grab the next one, move it a 1/4 inch, grab the next one a 1/4 inch. It's super annoying and very boring. Whereas here, you just lay them out in side views so that they're not overlapping, and then you just make 2D, boom, you're done. You have a whole sheet. And don't do it until you're done with laying out all of them. That way you just do the make 2D once, and it will make all your sheets in one go. And then, if you wanted to, you could decide, like that can go onto one layer, this can go on another layer, or whatever it is you want to do. The other thing that's really nice about the make 2D, it will take any time you had an overlapping line, and it will simplify it to just one line. There's also a command in CAD we can look at where it's called overkill, and it will also do that. The reason you want it to be only one line is the laser cutter sees the line, it'll cut once. But if you have overlapping lines on the screen on the computer, it looks fine, and when you print it out, you don't really notice much. But when you laser cut, the laser cutter sees that there's 2 lines, and it will run that cut twice or 3 times. Sometimes you have like 4 lines on top of each other, and you'll notice that it could have scored really nice everywhere or cut really nice and clean, and in that one spot it goes over the same spot 4 times, and it will almost always burn it really bad. Or it might cut it out when you just wanted it to score, because you're basically doubling or tripling the amount of laser cutter time on that one spot. So
like when you're packaging this up for the laser cutter, like when it's reading the file, like how does it know what layout? Like, could it just literally knows that those are separate cuts already just because they're separated out like that? Like,
yeah, it sees every individual line and it will cut them individually, and it uses some weird algorithm, because to us, we would start here, we would do a square here, and then we go back and then cut like that, but it might not do it that way. They might cut like that line, and it comes over here, it might cut this line, it might come there and cut that line. It does some weird thing. What it does do is in this laser cutter software, you can set the colors to have like you would in the layers, or like if you're organizing your layers. So what I recommend is make your score layer first. So whatever, and like it goes by the higher layers, it will cut first. And once it's cut all the things that are that color, it goes down to the next one. And the reason you want to score first is no material is truly flat. A lot of times, like your material have a slight bow to it, and when it's getting cut, if you cut first, your pieces, if you set the settings right and it actually does a nice cut, it will drop a little bit. Let's say like an 1/8 inch or sometimes 1/4 inch, even if it's like really warped. And the piece that drops, somehow it always works out that it angles a little bit. And then when it comes back later to score on top of it, it's no longer aligned like we were talking about with the laser being the perfect distance. So you end up missing like your next pass. So you want to make sure all your scoring gets done first, because the material will still stay nice and true, and then you cut second.
So it's just looking at that as a plan,
Right.
basically.
It doesn't need to know like what it is. It just needs to know what color is it, where does the line start, where is it end.
So I can imagine that that's just a piece of plexiglass right there, and you're feeding it that information to scale.
Yep.
And it just goes in there and sees those lines and starts cutting them out. Like, well,
Yep.
Lisa's okay. Makes sense. I'm just trying to logically understand what
Yep.
it's seeing.
That's so this what you see here is exactly what your material will look like when it's done.
Gotcha.
And it'll just have those cuts in it. You have a question?
Yes. So is it cutting all the way through?
Depends what color you choose and what setting is set for that color.
But so for it to drop out of the piece of plexiglass,
you would need it to cut all the way through.
Tell it, so all your perimeter lines would have to be.
Yep. So in this case, so here, let's do this because it's a lot easier to see this. Let me say just this one. We'll take into, so you could clean it up here, but just so that you see two ways to do it, I'm going to export this to AutoCAD. So you're going to want to use DXF when you, if it was a final model, like just to send to print. I'm going to use DWG just to send it into AutoCAD. My desktop. Save. See, you can have a bunch of choices. Like I usually do the older one just to make sure it will work. So it says successful. So now let's open this up in AutoCAD. So I have an older version, but any version will really work as long as you have the ability to make layers and save export DXF. That's the main thing for this laser cutter, is that if you forget and you save as DWG, it will just say unable to read, and then you gotta remember to go back. So if you have your laptop, it's not a big deal, you just save it. But if you came with only a flash drive and you don't have your laptop, then you're kind of stuck, because for a reason we don't have AutoCAD on that machine. So here, let's see, where is my material? Oh, here it is. It's just a black line. Wait. So let's go to my layers. Let me move this thing so you can actually see what I'm typing. Did it just turn off? That was weird. Okay, that works. So here I'm gonna make this, and go to these colors, like the index colors, and use these ones, because these ones are the closest. They're just the standard. Like, see, red is only, like here it shows you the RGB values. These ones, it just uses like the max value for just like one or two of these. So those are usually the most common ones that you'll see on that machine too. So I usually use red for that, and we can rename this like cut layer. And let's make a new one and call this one the score layer. And then it's easy to tell what's going to happen if you make sure you're using two different colors, which we need to, because that machine won't see the layers, it only sees the colors. So I can close that. So now my cut layer is red, but I also have a score layer. So here I'm going to look and see, I have that thing, I have this one. So you want to make sure that these, so I'm just going to explode these, that way they're all just individual lines. So there. So that's a pretty good way to think about laser cutter if you want to go real basic. So let's say I want it to cut out each perimeter one. This you don't really need. That was just there for us to know how big the sheet is. So whatever size the sheet is, I think it's 18, 24, whatever, you can make an outline, but then that I actually recommend make that on like a different layer. So I'm going to go back to my layers. Let's oh yeah, we've got layer 0, bless you. So to move an object to a layer, you select it, you click here, let's put it on 0. So we've got the sheet size, and then we've got cut layer set to red, and then the score layer is yellow. So now what you would have to do is we would have to go through, select what you want to go to the score layer. And so now when the laser cutter sees this, it's going to score everything. And here's the cool thing, once you've made one on that layer, you can use the match properties, either type MA, match prop, or you can use this guy, which is here. You can use match layer. There's tons of ways you can do this, but you pick the one you know looks right, and we just select those guys. I'm going to grab these guys. So now when we look at this, we have our outline. So that red line, it's going to cut. So when we send it to the laser cutter, we'll test the settings to make sure whatever power and speed you set for the red layer, it will cut all the way through your material. And then you have the yellow, which you'll set to either less power or more speed, or a combination of both, so that it just like zips across and doesn't cut it out. If you wanted it to truly cut everything out, you can just make everything the red layer and then just make it cut everything. You would, but some people want to do that. So if you wanted to create like a key or something, or like a rod that went through all the pieces and locked them all together, I would recommend doing that in Rhino. Or you could do it here as long as you have a reference so that it's in the same exact point on all of them. And keep in mind, when you cut, when you're cutting like a hole, it's going to be slightly, I'm talking like really little, like maybe like 1 millimeter, maybe 2 at the most. The hole will be a little bit bigger when you take the middle piece out, and that piece that's in the middle of the hole when you cut it out, it's going to be a little bit smaller than what you thought it was going to be, because it kind of burns away. So your holes end up being a little bigger than you thought. So if you say, oh, I have a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch square I'm going to cut out, and then I'm going to make a long piece that's 1/4 inch that I can stick right through, you'll see once you put that 1/4 inch piece that's perfectly 1/4 inch, the hole is going to be bigger than a 1/4 inch, and it won't be like a tight fit, so it'll be loose. So
it's kind of like a saw blade.
Right, you got to account for that. Yep, exactly. So you want to play around with that, and also think of the thickness of your material, because that makes a big difference. So sometimes I see people do the notches, but then they don't remember that different thickness material is going to require different notches. And so then it really becomes a matter, like, you can always just test it and do like a test just of like a couple of different size notches and see which ones fit together the nicest. So really that's what it comes down to, is testing what you're going to get based off what you put into it from the beginning. And all that comes with just experience and time. But general, like, you can get like 90% there really quick. It's that last 10% of perfecting what it is you're trying to get out of it is going to take a while. So that's the majority of it. Then once you have it, I recommend, here you can export with the boundary, but when you go to cut, make sure you delete this before you send it to the laser. So like, you can put it into the laser cutter software, and it'll ask you, what do you want to laser cut? Make sure you don't select the boundary, because it'll tell you it can't cut that, because it's trying to cut outside of what, because it's the same size as the entire bed, so it won't be able to cut that outer perimeter. So you can keep it there for now, which mine is also the wrong size. I just made it a random size, but the process is the same. So here you would go to export, and you go where is, or we can do save as.
For DXF?
Yeah. Here, other formats. So DXF lives here.
So you want to save as like export?
Yeah, save as, and then DXF. And some software calls it export, some call it save as. I mean, it's all the same stuff really. And then here is where it's important. You want to change this, not DWG. So go to DXF, and then there's, yeah, you can go to R12 if you wanted. I usually use like one of these. 2007 or 2000, whichever one you're comfortable with. And then make sure you save it like that. And then we can go on the desktop, save, and then you'll see a difference. So see DXF versus DWG. The DWG will look just like AutoCAD, whereas this is kind of just like a interchangeable format. A lot of software can read these. I mean, they're both kind of very similar languages. So, and then in here, if you're going out of Rhino, if you did that same process in Rhino, you set them on the different layers and all that, you would go File. Here it is under Export. And then you can do, it just gives you one choice of DXF here, but once you go into the options, it gives you more. So I usually do like 2007 natural.
So is there a preference?
Or lines.
Is there a preference when doing it completely in Rhino versus exporting it into CAD?
It's really up to you. Sometimes you have a model in Rhino already and you can do it. If you're working with something, let's say like SketchUp, I would never go out of SketchUp into it. Plus you can't really do a whole lot in SketchUp like you can in these, because as soon as you get two lines in SketchUp overlapping, it segments them.
No, I mean from going to Rhino into AutoCAD versus just exporting strictly into from Rhino.
As long as you have it flattened like this and to scale, you can go right out of Rhino. I was just showing you more than one way. But let's say you don't have it in Rhino at all,
Yeah.
and you're just thinking of something you want to like cut. Like AutoCAD is the fastest by far, because it's so simple. It's just lines.
Sorry, can you differentiate between what you want to score versus what you want to cut in Rhino?
Yeah, you just need to set two different layers with two different colors, just like we did here.
Okay.
So like if I go back to Rhino, and I just tell it, like grab all these, and we say, does it explode? And then you have them all kind of separated out. So let's see if it will explode that. Oh, it's, let me see, does unjoin? So that might get a little trickier. Whereas, CAD let us explode these. What was the command deconstruct? So you could go to curve. So you could try playing around with it, see if it'll give it to you. But I've always liked just going into AutoCAD. If you wanted to, you could do this. Like let's say that's my cut layer. And here's like score layer. Like you could do that. And then you just set them all to different layers, and then, but CAD is really like, if you're working just for something with lines like this, it's really fast and really easy. And to draw lines just like we did in CAD, I mean in Rhino, you do like your polylines, and you got like that. And then you have your layers. So for some stuff you will need to do it in CAD. Like if you're doing like site planning and stuff like that, and you have like a whole CAD file or something like that, or if you're doing like a site model, and you have CAD files already, like You don't have to import it into another software just to do it. But CAD is what I like about it is that I know it's simple and that's how I've cut I think almost all my models. I have done some from Rhino and it works. It's just
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, does Revit have that capability to cut something like into sections like Rhino does? Like when it cuts it, like how you hit the contour and it just divided
I'm
it
trying
into
to think.
equal sections like that.
I'm sure there are ways to do it, not as straightforward as that.
Yeah.
Like there's always like anyone can like work around things like that. But Rhino is super straightforward, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, so that would be really good if it was like a weird shape. If it was simple shapes you're making, you could probably do them in CAD, or just get like an elevation view or something, or if you have your model. You can also in Rhino, something that's kind of cool. If it's like, let's say we had like a shape like this, you can unfold. Oh no, yeah, it's called squish or smash. Is it this one? There. So see what it's done? It takes your shape and then it smashes it and it separates all the faces out and lays them flat. So if you were to laser cut it, you could then glue them back together. And that's with like a box, but if you had like a more complex form, something like this, you smash it.
Oh wow. It's like a kit of parts.
Yep. So then you could laser cut those, or you could print that out on paper and then cut it out and then form it. So,
cool.
and then obviously, like if you think about like the shapes you can make with Rhino, you can make some pretty complex forms which you would never be able to just manually make, and then that can quickly cut it out for you.
That's pretty neat.
So, but for this thing, you'll probably be doing it more in this manner, just because of the complexity of the shape. Trying to smash this thing, it's probably gonna give you a lot of little dudes. See, gives you every face like smashed out.
Wow.
Any questions on that? So I guarantee you it'll give you weird errors and stuff, so make sure you have Travis on speed dial or someone that you see laser cutting all the time, because it's just they're always finicky like that and something's always like off. And if one little thing is wrong. Oh, another really big thing, before you save the final one, this makes a huge difference. Move your stuff as close as you can to the origin, so 0, 0, 0, because the laser cutter software is kind of dumb and it just leaves stuff wherever it is. If you think about it, it stays kind of like to scale. So if you had it like way out in space and it was really easy to zoom over to it in CAD and work there, when you bring it to the laser cutter, it can't laser cut if it's way out in space. The laser cutter bed's kind of like by the origin, so you have to bring everything back to the table, and you'll end up doing something like this, where like you're zoomed out this far, and you have to like grab like your stuff and you hit move, and you move it as far as you can on the screen there, and you gotta like zoom out, and you say move, and you can zoom way out, and it's really easy to do this, and like you just lost your material. You're like, where is it? And you're like, I don't see it. I think there is a way, at least on the old machine, you could right click and say zoom to table, and it would zoom you to the laser cutter table, and you could say zoom to all objects or something like that.
Zoom extents or
There isn't one, but there's like, if you hit Control A and you say like zoom to object something, you can get it. But where it doesn't work is, let's say you had one little object over here and all the other stuff way over here. When you zoom extents, you can't see any of them because they're so far away. And then your table is like that big. So to avoid all that, you want to grab all your stuff and then move it really close to the origin. So here you can say 0, 0, 0.